Hello everybody, and we just saw a movie today, didn't we?
Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
And what did you think about it?
I thought it was pretty damn awesome. What do you think?
I really did too. It puts the original to shame.
Yeah, and the original movie came out in '82, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And we grew up with the original movie. It was my dad liked it a lot, so he showed it to me when I was a young kid, and I know that you've seen it when you were young, and it's something we grew up with. It was a movie that was, for its time, revolutionary in its special effects. It was just extraordinary, and the original movie didn't really have much of a consistent plot, but that didn't really matter just because it was so amazing to watch. Now this movie has the same actor, doesn't it?
Yeah, 28 years later.
What's the name of the actor again?
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges, reprising his role as Neil Flynn, right?
Right.
And so we're gonna talk about what we think about this movie, because I think it was very, very good. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it kept you in, such suspense, throughout. Now, here's one, question that I have to ask you.
Okay.
Now, if we can both agree that the original Tron did not have much of a plot, do you think that this movie follows that same course?
Well, this movie has a bit more of a plot. I mean, a lot of the things in the movie are left kind of vague, but
I will admit,
but that's okay. I'm not going to complain about that.
I will admit that during certain parts of this movie, I kind of was confused as to what was truly going on myself, but that didn't diminish my interest and fascination with it.
Right. Well, you're right, because when I came into this movie, I expected something along the similar veins of the original. I didn't really expect a fantastic story. The overarching story, the main points of the story, I think were consistent. All the little details, though, were kind of, I don't know if I want to say inconsistent, but they were just ambiguous.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's alright, because I expected it. I didn't expect, an exact, precise story. But what we did get, I think, was a pretty interesting thing.
Exactly.
It wasn't like the story was just enough to set the table for the action to happen, and the visual effects, especially since we saw it in the 3D, I thought the visual effects were amazing, don't you?
Yeah, that was actually. It may actually be the first time that I've seen something like that in 3D.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw Avatar in 3D, and I think Avatar still wins in the visual category, but, the electronic landscape of, the Tron world was epic, and it was just, it was all geometric, and it was like a mix of geometric and but it was also kind of like earthy. There were like jagged rocks and mist and, water, like moisture on the ground and things. It was like the Tron world was a mix of the electronic and the concrete, if you will.
Yeah, I see. I know what you mean.
And it was, I would say, it was a success for what the movie tried to do. It was successful. Now, one of the slight criticisms I have, and this really isn't a big criticism, but sometimes I think the pace of the movie could have been a little faster. I mean, if the pace was all right, I think if it just had a little bit more of a kick in the pants, it could have been an even better movie. That's kind of weird for me to say, because I think that most of the time my criticism of movies is the other direction. I think they should slow down. That was my opinion of the new Star Trek movie. I think it should have slowed down a little bit. But this movie, if it was just a tad bit faster of a pace, I think it would have only made it better.
I sometimes get the feeling that during this movie there were some scenes that could have been shortened a bit, like in the very middle, the scenes between Korra, the the dad and the son could have been taken out maybe just a slight.
Yeah, they could have been put to they could have been condensed to a more concise thing. And also, I think, the movie could have been a little longer. I mean, the movie was good and long. It was a pretty long movie. But
Yeah.
I think if they added maybe 10 more minutes of action in addition to what they had, it would have been cool. Because when you see Tron, when you're seeing a Tron movie, you're expecting a lot of, light cycle battles and disc battles, and there were a lot of those, and it was very cool. But I think that there could have been just a tad bit more of those, you know what I mean?
I actually thought, I wasn't actually suspecting, a very long movie, because sometimes it seems to me that they're making movies shorter nowadays than what they once were, because movies are really more fast-paced nowadays than they were, back then.
True. And you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that the pendulum of slow versus fast-paced is actually switching backward to a little bit of a slower pace these days, because the zeros, the knots, whatever you want to call it, the decade we just finished was the decade of extremely fast-paced movies that just shot right by you. And I think that there was enough, overdosing of that people were willing to, were looking more towards something that slowed down a little bit. I mean, you saw that, for example, with Harry Potter 6 and 7. I mean, the first 5 Harry Potter movies were just extremely fast-paced, in-your-face, but 6 and 7 pulled back a little bit. And I think that's kind of what, the vein that the Tron movie was. It pulled back a little bit. I mean, when it was action, there was a lot of action. But when it pulled back, it really pulled back, if that makes sense.
Here's an idea of a slow movie. Do you think that anybody nowadays can really pay attention and can really be glued to a movie that went as slow as the Molly Maguires? Or is that a stretch?
I don't know. That's a completely different category. But if we want to talk about sci-fi movies, think about Blade Runner, which also came out the same year as the original Tron.
Right. If you've noticed, Suddenplant, 82 was the year of sci-fi. I mean, you have Tron, you have Blade Runner, and you have Khan.
Exactly. Now, Blade Runner was an extremely slow-paced movie, but it was very good. And I don't ever think we should go back to movies that are that slow-paced. I mean, maybe one in a while. But, I don't want to focus too much on the criticisms of Tron, the new Tron movie, because I don't have that many criticisms. I think it was, for what I expected it to be, it was very satisfying, don't you think?
Right.
I like the characters. I especially liked, the female character. What was her name again?
Cora.
Yeah, I liked her a lot. Very, because she's sort of this hybrid type creature. She was sort of a spontaneous creation of the system, if I'm understanding the movie correctly. And maybe they could have done a little bit more with her. And I like the villain, though. What was his name? True?
Yeah.
I thought he was a very interesting villain. Maybe not the most. I mean, he was a little bit one-dimensional in that he really only wanted one thing. But the thing is, he's a program after all. So you can sort of forgive that. I mean, none of the characters were hugely developed, other than I think the father and son got a little bit of development just because of the setup to the story, but how the father disappeared, and I think that was good. I think the actors' performances were very good. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I really do.
Like some movies, you enjoy them, but you really want to punch certain actors in the face. I didn't get that feeling with this movie. I think that they all played their roles very authentically. And one other good thing I want to mention about the movie, I think it had a great soundtrack. don't you?
I do too. When I really think about it, it kind of doesn't surprise me that Korra really wasn't that developed, because if you've noticed with almost every movie that you've ever seen, they always have a female lead, and the female lead doesn't necessarily have to be developed. She's just there because she's a female.
That happens a lot of times. I'm not sure if that's, I'm not sure how much that is the case here. I think that she was a character with a potential that wasn't developed fully. I think that she, I don't know if they're gonna make a sequel or not, but I kind of like how she became, the whole Pinocchio thing. She became real in the end, so to speak. She left the machine world and she came out into the human world.
Yeah, it's great at the very end when the sun and Korra drive off on the motorcycle into the sunset.
Yeah, a very classic ending to a movie, and yeah, but I can't forget to mention, I thought the soundtrack was very cool. It was a very electronica sound to it. Wouldn't you say? It was very fitting for the atmosphere. From what I believe, it was composed by this Daft Punk. Ever heard of them? They're like electronic electropop. No, not electropop, but electro-funk, I guess. Or
I think I've probably heard the name before.
It was definitely a good soundtrack and definitely fit the mood of the movie. So I'm very happy about that. And so overall, I think it was a very good experience watching this movie.
Yeah, it was definitely worth the admission price.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts to add to this, to our analysis?
I think we've pretty much covered it. I don't have any more interesting points that we haven't discussed already.
Yeah, I think I would say I'm happy with the movie. It's complete enough as a standalone film. There's a possibility for a sequel. I mean,
yeah.
The father and the main villain have been destroyed, supposedly, but it's kind of ambiguous. I would like to think there's a possibility that there might be a sequel. Maybe an idea that they could have the two of them. Flynn and True could have combined into one entity. That'd be kind of an interesting idea for a sequel.
Yeah, that could still happen at this point.
But I want to see the son again, and I want to see the girl again, and it would be interesting to see the son continue his father's work building this electronic world. I think that would be interesting to see. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity for them to screw up the sequel, unfortunately, but I have faith that in capable hands it can be good. But I haven't heard anything, but just focusing on this movie, very good movie, and I'm definitely happy I've seen it.
Me too. I think we had a really good day today, Suddenplant.
I think we did too.